I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was expecting cleaning solution or something like that. That's where my thought goes with tubes.
I mean, and I don't know how the general audience is going to react to it, but the like press screening that we saw it in caught it a lot of laughs.
This is not retribution. It's a reawakening. Live or die. The choice is yours.
It's insane, right? Art the clown.
I'm something different.
Hey friends, welcome back to another modern horror movie talk. I'm your host Tyler Nichols, and today we have Vanna Taylor from Fangoria magazine talking with us. Vanna, how you doing?
I am doing good. I'm really excited. I've never done anything like on video, really. So this is like new for me.
Well, you host a podcast though, don't you?
Yeah. So I'm used to like being able to hide, behind it being simply an audio medium. So
trust me, I'm like most of the time I do this, I have all of these lights on, and by the end of the episode, I'm just like a ball of sweat. And there's times where I'm just like, oh, I wish it was audio only. Then I could just be in sweats and no lights on at all. I could be in a cave.
Yeah, I'm in SoCal and I don't have central AC. So
ouch.
It's warm.
Ouch. Well, and I saw too that you did a Saw X spread for Fangoria.
Yeah, it'll be out. It's the October issue. I don't know how soon it'll be in people's mailboxes and whatnot, but it'll hopefully hit shelves. That was all kind of assigned and laid out when the release date for the film was still in October. So when they moved it up, it kind of made things a little screwy, but it's still really awesome and it's a really good read, I hope, for people.
Yeah, so Vanna and I actually met at the Saw X press event over in Vegas where we got to do this cool little escape room, which there should be footage on the channel, which is it's a fun little, I don't know, if you get a chance to go do it, I would highly recommend it because if you're a Saw fan, then it's just a fun time, which gets me into my first question. Are you a fan of the Saw franchise?
To say the least. I don't know how well you can see on video, but I have a tattoo of Billy in a little jigsaw like puzzle piece. I'm a huge fan. I have been my whole life. I'm one of those people that says the first film is a comfort movie. I turn it on quite often. I have a lot of opinions about a lot of the sequels, but I'm still a dedicated fan through and through.
Okay, so I have two questions for you. First would be, what is your favorite sequel? And the second follow-up would be, what's your least favorite sequel?
Well, my favorite sequel, I think, was 2. I think it's a really strong follow-up, but I think Saw X might give it a run for its money. I have been like trying to think about it the last few days. Like I was looking at my ranking on Letterboxd, and I might have to put Saw X right under the first Saw. I'm not sure. That's a bold statement, but I've been trying to like sit on that.
I've been right there with you, where it's like I feel like I need another viewing to finally figure out like where my ranking actually is.
Yeah, for least favorite, I think it's too easy of an answer to say Spiral.
Yeah.
But I guess in like the more mainline films, probably 5. I think 5. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it's 5. That's the one that I'm not like the biggest Hoffman fan, and I think that's the one that is just a little like doesn't have too many of the elements that keep me coming to a Saw film. I don't know if that makes sense.
Going into Saw X, it seems like you would probably be very similar to me in that if your favorite is the second one, like favorite sequel, then it's like, okay, this is perfect that we're getting a movie that's set in between the first two. That's what I've wanted for ages, because I think that the third movie is such a missed opportunity in how much they kill off, like they rush things too quickly, and there's just so much where I'm like, I mean, Jigsaw dies in movie 3, and yet we're on movie 10, and we're still like featuring him. So it's like it was clearly a mistake to get rid of him so early on.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to the original film. Like I don't think they ever really foresaw that it would be a huge franchise. And from the get-go, it's known that he's diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. So it's like inevitable that his time is limited. And so unfortunately, that's already written in from the get-go. But yeah, I think it's really clever. I mean, they're really lucky that they're able to get Tobin Bell and Johnny Smith back, and that they look so amazing still, and they do so amazing. Yeah, I totally agree. I think going back to that time period is like the perfect sequel.
And I should say too, we're now into our Saw X discussion, and this will be non-spoiler, and anything that's in the trailer we're going to talk about, because the trailer gets into like everything in terms of the setup, to the point that, I mean, I think it does kind of hurt the pacing of the movie slightly, just because you're like, okay, we already know this. We already know what's going on. Let's get to it a little faster, which I think somewhat hurts it. But I also try to not hold something that's in a trailer against the like finished product, because the filmmakers have nothing to do with marketing most of the time.
I think I saw the trailer again recently after having watched the film, and I was like, I forgot how much they really hash out in the trailer. Yeah, but in a way, it kept me guessing. I was like, okay, so this was all like in the trailer. Like, so where are they going to go next? Like, of course, with a Saw film, there's always a twist. So I was sitting there anticipating, like, okay, if what wasn't in the trailer? That's what I'm trying to figure out the whole time I'm watching it.
One of my favorite things about the whole opening of the film, other than, I mean, the opening shot is just great with John on the like getting radiation therapy, and it's just great like close up and just really slick editing. And they go into him having like a dream sequence, essentially, of him imagining making this guy who's like stealing from a patient, putting him into this trap. And okay, I just have to ask you, did you expect that trap to go the way it goes? Because I thought for sure it was going to be like acid that comes down the tubes and dissolves into his head.
Yeah, I know a lot of the buzz around once the like poster dropped. I think the question was like, okay, is something going into the tube or coming out of the tube? Like a lot of people were saying like hamsters or rats, but I definitely was thinking acid, especially because there's the little caveat that the person is like a janitor or something. So, and I think in the tape or something like that, it mentions like cleaning supplies. And I was like, oh, like some sort of cleaning solution is going to go through that. When it came to actually watching the film itself, they had teased that scene at Midsummer Scream, and also like with their little Twitter campaign. So I was like a little like, okay, I've already seen this before, but it's still, like you mentioned, it's like an imaginary sequence. So that was like a twist, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was expecting cleaning solution or something like that. That's where my thought goes with tubes.
I mean, and I don't know how the general audience is going to react to it, but the like press screening that we saw it in caught it a lot of laughs from the actual sucking of the eyes out, and where it's like, okay, I think that then the fact that it is a dream sequence kind of lessens that, because it's like, oh, okay, that's why it feels over the top, because it is like, it's not well thought out, because it's just him thinking of it on the fly. Like, okay, that makes sense to me, and it works. And plus two, it also gives this idea of that this is how John spends his day, just like sees an evil person and he's like, what trap can I put you in?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting that they kind of talk a lot about how this is a really personal look at John, and a look into the way he thinks. And so I think that was like really clever to include, the thought process, because that's something I don't think we ever like get to see. Obviously throughout the like other sequels, you see like the warehouse and old traps and perhaps like prototypes and things like that, but to actually see like a full fleshed out hypothetical scenario was like really interesting.
Yeah, I think that Tobin Bell is just so fascinating in this film. And I mean, it's been said so many times with Spiral, because he's not in it, and that's a big missing part of it, because he's just so intriguing from his voice just to whenever he's on screen. I think that you're just so interested in what's going to happen, because I mean, both he has a lot of gravitas to him as an actor, but then the character too is just so intriguing, and it's set up in such a interesting way here because we haven't really seen John in this weird retribution angle where he's then still trying to like he's still going by his own moral compass, which I like because it's like, yes, he's setting these people up, but I mean, we're seeing more people escape traps than ever before, which is I think is interesting because I think it's more truthful to like the John side of it because I think a lot of people forget that we've seen more traps that are from Amanda and Hoffman than we have seen John throughout the whole series. So it's like the brutality is not Kramer.
Yeah, I think that was like a really big point. Obviously, really trying to hone in on what John's philosophy is. And yeah, I totally agree. People totally, when they think of jigsaw traps, they're often thinking of things that Hoffman did or that Amanda did. And, a lot of those traps definitely don't follow John's philosophy. So I thought that was really interesting. And also, I mean, we've seen personal victims or personal traps. I think one sequel where there's a trap with Cecil because that person was like responsible for the death of their child.
Mhm.
But this one is like a lot more personal. And so I think it kind of also gets into like when you are so like emotionally invested or like it's like a little too close to home, like that's where flaws or where you can like kind of fumble because you're kind of blinded by that like revenge angle, I guess. So that was a really different mental headspace to see John in too.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because it's almost like we have to go back in time in terms of. I mean, obviously, it goes back in time between the films, but with Amanda's arc as just a character, we're really going back a bit. So then we haven't had this whole moral dilemma and quandary that she then goes through in 3. So I like that we get to sit more in that space of just mentor mentee because I think that that's where this movie is at its strongest is where anytime John and Amanda are interacting, where because it just feels like you had said with the first Saw is like a like a warm blanket or something. That is what I feel like those scenes are. It's like a warm blanket seeing them interact together.
Yeah, she's so good. And Amanda is, my favorite apprentice. So it's really interesting to get to see what eventually leads to the way she behaves in 2 or specifically in 3 since that's the last one we get the 2 of them together. Yeah, it's just really awesome to see like those seeds and like to really see how their relationship actually works cuz we only really see them together in the 3rd one. I mean, there's like that's the twist in the 2nd one, but actual screen time with them together.
There's like one
And
scene
all that
in
time
6.
oh
She's
yeah, I think
like
a little like flashback.
yeah, wheeling him in on a wheelchair. I only know this because I just had to edit my video review, and I'm like, "Where's footage of them together? I just need them together in a scene."
Yeah, I think that's one of those scenes where she's like giving Hoffman shit about like
Yes,
I don't know, the way he does traps or
that's
something.
100% what it
But
is.
yeah, and so but in 3 he's bedridden and stuff like that. So he's not as active and so it's
Mhm.
really awesome to see them like actually working together, like physically working together. There's some like tender moments between them that like got me. So
Yeah.
that's a really interesting thing. Like they keep saying it's like John's story, but I was all like, this is almost like Amanda's movie.
Yeah, I mean, she really steals the spotlight away from Tobin Bell in a lot of those scenes, and especially I was shocked at how funny the movie is because I mean, and I say that, and I know that already brings up like red flags for people, but it's like, no, this is not Chris Rock doing stand up in Spiral. It works for the character. It's mostly Amanda, and it works for those moments. It works in the lore, it works in the world. It's not like I always use the example of it's not John doing quips and being like super like witty or anything like that. That's not what it is.
Yeah, it's Amanda at her sassiest. She's always been shown to be a really like headstrong character. Like the way we see her in 3 is like her and John butting heads because she's like a fiery person. So you really get to see that personality like really fleshed out in this one. And yeah, I found myself laughing at, some of the things that she was saying. She's just so sassy and like witty, and that's one of the reasons I love her.
Yeah. There's a trap involving is it piano wire? Like, what is on that where she essentially saws her into her thigh, and it is like the press screening was full of a bunch of horror people, and you could still hear people just like, which I never hear that kind of reaction from a movie. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, that one trap specifically got me a little bit because I think the actress just sells it so well.
Yes.
And yeah, I think it's in the description or whatever John says to her, for her trap. Like, I think he says it's some specific type of saw, but it pretty much is just piano wire. So she's just sawing off her leg, and I think that's a really great ode to what started the franchise, with Dr. Gordon, sawing off a limb. Yeah, I don't, and that trap actually is gonna be the newsstand cover for the Fangoria issue. So I'm like, everyone got to see a great clip of some girl like with no context.
I was shocked though at how PG that cover is. Like, despite how R-rated the scene is, I was like, oh, I actually got a shot that it really doesn't look that bad. Like, doesn't look like it gets as bad as it does.
Yeah, she definitely looks like she's going through it, but there's a few extra elements to that trap that really get under your skin, so to speak.
The bone marrow.
I think that was my favorite. Yeah, I was like, not only does she have to saw her leg off, but she has to suck out the bone marrow. Like, just saying that out loud, I'm like, that's gnarly.
And the suction sound and everything, it works really well. And it was, I don't know, I liked that one a lot. And then I also really liked the bomb trap where he's like, he has these bombs, this guy has these bombs strapped to his forearms, and he has to like cut them off. It's
oh my gosh, so gnarly.
Yeah. And I genuinely, the whole time, because of how much people die in these movies, I was like, okay, yep, not gonna happen. He's not getting it. Because also, that's another huge positive change for these films. They usually have like 60 seconds. It's been changed to pretty much 3 minutes across the board, which is so much more like acceptable. It's like the times like in the second movie where they're like, I want you to cut this key out of your eye in 60 seconds. Like, what? Give me some time. Like, I need more time than that. So I think 3 minutes, they finally have settled on something that it's not like comically short.
Yeah, I think for me, that is where it gets obvious that the apprentices are the ones at the head of a specific trap. A lot of Hoffman's traps are 60 seconds, 30 seconds, because he's not really following the philosophy. But, like in the first one, they have like a whole day to sit there. They have hours to sit there and think about what they've done. So it's really crazy to see like, Dr. Gordon and Adam get hours, and then people start getting 60 seconds. So this one has a little middle ground there. So which I think also allows the scene to be fleshed out. I think once we get into some of the middle sequels, they were all pretty much greenlit as soon as the previous movie came out. So it was very much about trying to pump out traps. And so it's kind of just like cut from trap to trap to trap with a little less intention. And these ones, like these traps were all very much intentional. And I like being able to see someone think through how they may or may not get out. So I think that's definitely a huge plus in this one for sure.
And it helps too that I think that not only is this the best acted of all the films in the series, but I think that the characters are some of the best. They have Gabriella, who is essentially a little Amanda surrogate, who I think is just one of the better victim characters they've ever done. I think that just from start to finish, they just did a really good job, which in the trailer, again, like there's a lot of stuff in the trailer that kind of gave me the impression where I'm like, oh, this is going to be so stereotypical. But no, I think it works really well. I think they did a really good job with it. Also, because of you can almost see some of the like John liking her specifically because he sees the parallels between her and Amanda. So I like that element. And I don't know, the Mateo, even I thought he was a good actor. They just usually these people are just one note and they just show up and then they're dead. But it was like everyone was working together as a team. That was interesting. It was I don't know, better dynamic than some of the other films.
Gabriella is one of my favorite characters. I really like that kind of mirror that she like her character holds up to Amanda, which I think that's one of the main reasons that Amanda begins to falter. Like I think, she sees herself in this person and has sympathy, but she also, I think, even though she believes that John saved her, I think she also still harbors a lot of guilt or doesn't actually think that she's worthy. And so like seeing someone else who was pretty much in the same position as Amanda, like actually being the person running her trap, like I think it just brings up so many emotions for Amanda. And I think that's so clever. But also Dr. Cecilia Peterson, she's a really interesting character. And
interesting, but very one note.
Yeah, she like interesting in the sense that I feel like is almost, this is like the first time Jigsaw or John himself has an adversary, like has his own antagonist, which was weird, I guess.
Yeah,
I was
didn't even
like,
think
once
about that
started happening, I was like, she's like a reverse Jigsaw. Like she completely challenges his moral code. And I was just so like shocked. I don't know. That was just one thing I was really not expecting. And so when that started happening, I was like, okay, where is this gonna go?
Yeah, I liked that they went as far with her character, but there was moments where I'm like, okay, she is just so one note evil. Where I'm like, I don't, just like how John is more of a morally gray bad guy. I want, like, if he has an adversary, I want them to be morally gray as well. But just
she was very just evil, like just evil from start to finish. And like she kept getting more evil, and I was just
comically
like, this is wild.
Did you so I knew as soon as Parker shows up and they have that little like, oh, I heard what did he say? I heard gunshots or I heard something, and he was coming to check it out. From the moment he even showed up, I was like, he's Cecilia's boyfriend. Was that telegraphed or
yeah, I think like how fake their operation was. I was like, there's no way there's some guy who's recovering from surgery still there. Like he would have, if he was an actual patient, he would have gotten the John treatment and not been able to go back to the facility. And, like
he wouldn't know where it was.
The fact that he was there. Yeah. Like the fact that he was there at all, like that's just how thought out their con was, is that they had an actor pretending to be healed. So yeah, I think that was like, as soon as we met him, I was like, okay, this guy has to be in on it. So seeing him later, I was like, all right, I see you.
And so I think that I pretty much judge a Saw movie based on the twist. I think that that's always my main thing. And so it's weird to say that, because I will say that I think the twist here is weak, but it doesn't really destroy my enjoyment of the movie. I think mostly because there's elements of it that I really like, that they were, they knew from the get-go that she was going to call. That's how they needed to get Parker somehow. And so they used Cecilia to get him in. I like that element. I think that just the final trap is really lame, with them being trapped in the room with the toxin.
Yeah, I think it's really not, considering the whole film is like a Jigsaw revenge tale, it's really unsatisfying that he does not actually get revenge on the person that is like the ringleader of it all. Like obviously we don't have a what happens now situation where we see her continuing on, but she doesn't technically meet her demise necessarily in the way the trap intends. So
Yeah, I consider her
I was
alive at
like,
the end.
dang. Yeah, like, like I said, obviously she could be stuck there and eventually like starve or something like, but not like she did not meet her demise in some gruesome trap way, like, so that was really unsatisfying. Yeah, I totally agree. I also very much love the twist and I was waiting for a twist. I think I excuse it because of the fact that we knew they were going back into a like pre-established time. So
Yeah.
they can't do anything too crazy that would alter the sequels that they still intend to be canon, like 2 and 3. So they're very much limited on what
Brings me like to a point though that I didn't even think about until you just said that but then the whole Parker and Cecilia turning it around on John and Amanda, that whole little bit where it's like, wait a minute, but we know that they got out of it. Like, where's the tension here? Because then we know, like, we've seen Saw 2. We know that you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I didn't even really think about that element because that is very strange. I don't, dang it, I like this movie. I want to very much, like, I don't, picking these things, it's more just acknowledging rather than being like, oh no, that ruins it. That ruins this. That ruins that. I still liked it.
I think the whole time that scene was happening, I was like, okay, so I know he gets out of this. So like
Yeah.
in my mind, I was almost like, so what is the actual twist? Like, even though there was a twist, I was like, okay, that can't be the twist. Where's the actual twist?
Yeah.
And 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 so it's really actually interesting to me that I still very much enjoy it, like you said, because I think that just speaks to how strong like the rest of the story actually is that
Mhm.
they were able to craft a story that was so intriguing and so enjoyable for me to watch that I even excuse that there's not really a good twist. To me,
Yeah.
the twist was almost like rather than a twist that usually retcons a lot of the events of a previous film, or there's a lot of like time skipping and things like that, where the
Mhm.
twist is revealing the actual chronology of events or
Yeah.
things like that. Like to me, the real twist was when I finally heard Hoffman's voice. That was the moment when I was like, oh, there he is. There's the guy. Even though that's another thing that I think this movie speaks to how good of a movie it is. I don't like Hoffman at all. Like I actually really don't like him, and that's
Yeah.
probably where I differ from a lot of like hardcore Saw fans.
Mhm.
But I was still really excited to finally see him. And so I was like, wow, they just made me excited for someone I don't like, which
Yeah.
I think, you know, is like kudos to them, I guess. I know his voice was in the trailer and people didn't believe me.
What the
Um,
fuck? I didn't even know until going through my Saw X edit, and then as soon as it starts off, when I'm like, wait a minute, that's literally the post-credit scene. What? What?
Yeah, yeah. I know they cut it in a way to where it looks like, the caption just says like detective as the moniker. So
Mhm.
to me, I was like, oh, is Hoffman gonna be, is there some other storyline happening in this film where Hoffman is on Jigsaw's trail, like pretending to be on his
Mhm.
tail? And so they kind of splice it in a way where you think that audio is over some sort of investigation happening, but it's
Yeah.
really just the end credit scene. But I texted friends and I was like, is no one going to talk about how Hoffman's voice is there? And they were like, why would he be like, why would he be there? And I was like, okay, you didn't watch Saw 3D where it was revealed that, or,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, where it's revealed that he's been there the whole time. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, maybe they couldn't get the actor to come back, or maybe there's a reason his voice is present but his face isn't. Like I was trying to
Mhm.
come up with reasons, but I was like, nope, they just that's their little
Yeah.
twist ending. But
I
it was still exciting, I
yeah.
guess.
I count myself as a big Hoffman fan, and literally going into this movie, I was like, the only thing that I want is Hoffman coming back. That's all. That's the main thing I
Really?
wanted. So then there's hints of it, and then at one point he even says like detective, and which like because you can't hear his voice completely, you can hear you can hear Tobin Bell say detective, and it's like, oh, that has to be Hoffman. But then the final, like when we finally get to see him, because it's also great too because they show the credits, and literally in the credits, I'm
Mhm.
like, why is Costas Mandalore not there? I know that was him. We heard him earlier. And then it was like, oh, boom, we actually get to see him in the flesh. So that was great.
I don't know. I actually thought that was going to be the twist like earlier, like his involvement.
Same.
I thought when we saw so many different pig masks, I thought one of the reveals was going to be his face. I thought when they're surprised by someone else being at the facility and it's that guy that was helping Cecilia, I thought that it was going to be Hoffman showing up to get the, one up. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess, but then I then forgot that I was waiting for Hoffman until he showed up. So I was like, I don't know. I find him very valuable, so I understand why people like him. I just I don't like him as a person. Like,
yeah, he's terrible.
Like, I want to fight Hoffman, which I know is like the point. Like, like everyone is a villain, but because I still value him as like his role in the dynamic. So I was still like, okay, but he's got to be there. Like,
yeah, I think even Josh Stolberg, one of the writers, has said like they wanted this to be John and Amanda. And so I think that that's a big reason why he is just in like the post-credit scene. So that then it's like, okay, that way it's a little bit of a tease, because I know when I talk with Mark Berg and Oren Cools, they said they'll meet on Monday to discuss a sequel. Like they said, they don't talk about anything before box office comes in. So it's like they're meeting today to talk about a sequel. So hopefully we hear something about it soon, because they're real fast about announcing these.
Yeah, I was like, I asked kind of a similar question. I was like, are there plans? Like, and they were literally just like, yep. I mean, if Lionsgate wants it and the audience responds to this movie, then we're down to do more. Yeah. And I was like, all right. That's all I needed to hear.
That's what I'm hoping for. So what would your final rating for this movie be? I usually do out of 10.
Out of 10. That is really hard. I was really like buzzing afterwards. I was like, that was so good. And I was trying to be as objective as possible. Like, not just, I don't know. Anytime I come out of a movie theater, I think I rate a film higher just because the theater experience is always so fun. I was sat next to someone who had never seen a Saw film before. And so that was a fun experience and all that. But since I've been, thinking about it, I, have to write my review and whatnot. I think I've landed on, I was going to say a 4, but that's out of 5. So maybe like an 8.5. Yeah, like an 8.5.
Okay.
I think it might go up, it might go down. I think it might go up because I've been trying to think of like if I like it more than 2 or not. So yeah, 8.5 ish or 8.75. That's where I'll land. I'll be precise with it.
Well, there you go. Almost a 9. That's very, very high. I didn't like it quite that much, mostly because of the twist. The twist not being that amazing Saw moment does bring it down for me. So I'd probably give it a 7, but I still really enjoy it. I always say that I think that our rating system is very strange, and that I always try and use the full actual gamut. And so I think a 7 is still a great movie. And I think that just there's some flaws. And if anything, I'm just really looking forward to where they take this, because I mean, maybe it's just because it's only press that have seen it so far, but I'm seeing a lot of positive things, like a lot of positive.
Yeah, I think it's really well crafted. I think aside from what, people might have wanted from a story or things like that, I think just as a film, like it's beautiful. I think Nick Matthews did so good with the cinematography. Yeah. It is quite bloody at some points.
Yeah, potentially the bloodiest
it's just
one.
kind of a good film. Yeah, they said they went through gallons. They said they went through more blood than any other Saw film. So
that one scene alone, the one leg cutting off, that's all I could think of. It's like, there's so much blood in that scene. I wouldn't be shocked. Well, and then also the blood, like the actual whatever waterboarding. Bloodboarding. Yeah. I mean, that alone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think because some of them I think get a little like campy in a way. Like, I don't know. It's like a really nice, serious film, but it's just like definitely has potential for more. I'm really excited to actually do another full franchise rewatch with it, like in between 1 and 2. I want to see how it colors my viewing of 2 and 3, like since it's so about Amanda and John. So yeah, I'm excited to like do that once I get to watch it again.
Yeah. Same, because I'm weird and I've been watching them like out of order after seeing Saw X, where I'm like, watch like 2 and then 6 and then 4. I'm all over the place. So it's just like, I'm now prepping for another Saw X viewing this upcoming week, just to then see, hopefully be reaffirmed in my opinion and not be like, oh no, how did I not notice this? Oh no, how did I not notice this? That's always the concern.
I'm trying to get to a screening tomorrow night. So
nice.
We'll see. And I also am really excited to be in a theater with a bunch of people who will be seeing it for the first time, like as a second time watch. I can kind of like, see if I can see some reactions or hear some oohs and ahs. That's always fun for me.
Yeah, same. I mean, opening night horror movie is one of the most fun things. So I plan on doing the same, because I think that this one will have some, between the eyeball sucking and the whole sawing of the leg off and the bone marrow. And yeah, there's just a lot of moments where would be very curious to see how an audience would react.
Oh yeah. I'm excited for the applause as well.
Yes. Oh yeah. Because I mean, the Hoffman reveal got it was like a Avengers cameo level, where it's like, oh my, I wonder if standard theater goers will be like this, where they're like, yes, Hoffman, or if it's just like us horror nerds that are like, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like to see a general audience reception, see how that goes.
Same. Well, thank you so much for talking Saw X with me. This has been so much fun. And where can the audience follow you at?
Yeah, so on pretty much any social media, there's so many nowadays. I am at Siren Death Cult on TikTok, on Instagram, Twitter. That's even my letterbox. And then I do have my own blog, sirendeathcult.com. I try to do some reviews over there. And then, like we mentioned, you can find some of my work in Fangoria magazine and on the website soon. So
yeah, so definitely pick up the Saw X, the October Fangoria issue, so you can see some of Vanna's awesome work. And yeah, that's really all. Let us know in the comments what you think of Saw X, and if you want to see more in the franchise, because I know I certainly do. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.